The Tornado, written by Gordon H. Souls. Spring is usually a nice time of the year. Warm winds blow and gentle rains fall. Flowers come up above the ground and the days get warmer. But sometimes spring is not pleasant, especially in the West where I live. Sometimes spring brings hot weather. Then the bottom drops from the clouds, and heavy rains beat against the earth, and the winds blow with great violence. Sometimes, in my part of the country, spring brings serious troubles, as it did one day that I will not easily forget. It suddenly got very hot. The sun shone now and then, but all was still, not much wind. Then the clouds began to move in very low around the edge of the sky. They moved in slowly at first, then a little faster. Everything was quiet. Even the birds knew something was wrong. They stopped singing. The cows began to move around like the clouds, slowly at first, then faster. The clouds came closer and closer, and the air seemed heavy. The sky grew darker. The chickens stopped eating. They became strangely quiet, standing first on one leg and then on the other, moving their heads quickly from one side to the other. The cats in the field ran towards the house. Yet the dogs did not bark at the cats, nor run after them. And the air on the backs of the cats stood straight up. Mom and Dad were looking at the clouds. So were the workers in the fields. Then the workers quickly began to walk towards the house, following the cats. Everyone talked softly, as if someone was sick. I do not think they were afraid, just careful. The clouds began to move wildly, as if they were angry. A warm wind blew, then a cold one. Suddenly, a wind came down from the black clouds and began to turn around and around in little circles. It did not come completely down to the ground, but seemed to hang from the clouds. The wind at the bottom looked like a thin line. Higher up, the circles were much wider. It was the beginning of a tornado. The turning wind hung down from the cloud, then began to move. Now it came down to the ground. The wind had a long funnel shape as it touched the ground. It violently sucked up dust and dirt. A moment later, the wind moved on, then touched the ground farther away, and at last was gone. It was like a bad dream. No one moved. We just stood in one place as if our feet were tied to the ground. When the tornado left, it began to rain. The wind blew with such force the rain went through the walls of the house. That was my first tornado. There were others like the one that hit a small town of Farley. In the center of Farley, there was one building. It was the post office and the only store. There you can mail a letter or buy food or a farm machine or even sweet candy for the children. There were 10 homes in Farley, a church, and a small school. Out of town was farms. The day the tornado decided to hit Farley, it first settled down south of the town, then moved in. Some of the people in town saw it coming, and they ran to their homes. But no one remembered to tell old Mrs. Bidwell. Perhaps there was no time to tell her. Mrs. Bidwell was very old. She lived alone in a small house. Most of the time, she sat in front of her house in an old rocking chair. Other times, she visited the town people just to talk about the weather or the past. Sometimes, when a family needed help, Mrs. Bidwell went to them. But she was really too old to help much. I think Mrs. Bidwell liked to think that she was needed. The day the tornado arrived in Friday, Mrs. Bidwell was sitting on a rocking chair in front of her house. It was a warm day, and she might have been half asleep. The tornado had picked up tons of dirt as it dropped to the ground, then jumped back up to the clouds. Mrs. Bidwell's eyes were poor, and she could not see much. But the first thing she remembered was a farm machine flying high in the air. "When I saw that machine flying," Mrs. Bidwell said, "flying as if it were cutting grain in the sky, well, I thought my days on earth were gone. I expected to see my dead husband fly past any moment. Then the next thing I knew, I was flying too, right behind that old machine. I must have flown around in circles because when I hit the ground, I was lying next to my house, or what was left of it. I just lay there for a time," Mrs. Bidwell said. "I could not breathe, and I could not see very far. The air was so full of dust. I began to wonder if the end of the world had come." The rain that followed the tornado settled the dirt. But poor Mrs. Bidwell looked as if she had been playing in the mud. She was covered with mud from head to toe. The tornado probably saved Mrs. Bidwell's life, because while she was flying through the air, her house fell to the ground. Strangely though, her old rocking chair was not damaged. The tornado had picked it up and turned it around a few hundred times, then put it gently down almost in the same place. There was not much left of the Friday after the tornado. Most of the tin houses were just pieces of wood. The town looked as if it had fallen in on itself. This is what a tornado does to buildings. Mom says the tornado pushes with great force against all sides of the building. That is why the building falls in. But if you open the windows, Mom says, then some of the wind can blow through the house, and this helps stop much of damage. Well, it seems as if no one in Florida opened their windows. Most of the homes looked as if they had suddenly become tired and just fallen in. Mr. Bartley's house was the least damaged. I remember Bartley's very well. Mr. Bartley had just bought a new bathtub when the tornado came. He was proud of the new bathtub. The Bartley's children were proud of it too. They would say to us, "Well, your father might have a new farm machine, but we have a new bathtub, so there." Well, part of the Bartley's house was badly damaged, especially the room with the bathtub, and the bathtub was gone. The Bartleys looked at it all over the town, and at last they found the tub in the middle of the cornfield. It was not damaged at all. Mr. Bartlett built a special room for the bathtub. He said, "I'm going to fix this tub so firmly that 10 tornadoes will not carry it away. I don't want to be picked up by a tornado some nights when I wash myself and put down in the middle of town." The town itself was in ruins. Trees were down, fences were blown away, chickens were walking everywhere. There were chairs and tables and beds lying in the streets where a tornado had dropped them. But I think the strangest thing that happened was to a piece of wood from a fence. Fences in my part of the country are made of hardwood, and so all of us were surprised when someone found a piece of hard fence wood with thin sticks forced through it. It just did not seem possible that thin little sticks of wood could go right through hardwood. But those who know say that the little sticks had so much force blowing against them on all sides that they were strong enough to go through almost anything. When the tornado left, the work began. The people cleaned up the town, and they helped each other fixing the broken homes. Mrs. Bidwell's house looked almost new when the man completed the job of fixing it. Mr. Barley's home looked nice too, and his bathtub worked just fine. Everyone was happy with their farms and homes, but no one ever forgot the tornado. I know I didn't. I thought about the tornadoes every time I saw little sticks of wood, like the pieces that went through the hardwood fence. Seeing the stick always makes me to take a quick look around at the sky.